1945. Europe, a smoking crater. The US just introduced the world to the ultimate oops button. 2 atomic bombs. And everyone's left standing there, jaws dropped, thinking, did we just accidentally end the world? But hold on, because out of this global-sized oops moment, 3 ridiculously complicated things were born. NATO, the EU, and a US-Europe relationship that's basically a reality TV show, except with world-altering consequences. Some call them besties, some call them frenemies, and some are just waiting for the dramatic breakup scene. So, how did this chaotic family get started? Let's rewind and dive into the most dysfunctional geopolitical soap opera ever. After the dust settled from World War II, the world was left with a chilling question. Who was going to stand against the Soviet Union? Stalin's ambitions were clear, and the specter of communism was spreading like wildfire across a war-torn Europe. The fear was palpable. Would the Soviets stage a communism party that no one could refuse, turning the entire continent red? America, with its newfound global leadership, stepped up. They didn't just have an idea, they had a strategic vision. Let's forge a powerful military alliance, a united front of democratic nations. They called it the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, essentially team democracy on a global scale. And so, in 1949, NATO was born, a beacon of hope in a world still reeling from conflict. The initial lineup was a carefully selected dozen, 12 nations, mostly from the heart of Western Europe. France, Britain, Belgium, the Netherlands, and others joined forces with the United States and Canada. The core principle was simple, yet profound. Article 5, the cornerstone of NATO, declared that an attack on one member was an attack on all. If any NATO country faced aggression, every other member was obligated to come to its defense. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Iron Curtain, the Soviet Union was anything but pleased. They saw NATO as a direct threat, a hostile alliance encircling their sphere of influence. Stalin, never one to back down, responded in kind. He orchestrated the formation of his own military bloc, the Warsaw Pact, a counter-alliance designed to consolidate Soviet power and project it across Eastern Europe. It was, in essence, NATO's evil twin, mirroring its structure but driven by a fundamentally different ideology. And just like that, with 2 opposing alliances facing each other across a divided continent, the Cold War was officially in full swing. The world was now locked in a tense standoff, a battle of ideologies with the potential for catastrophic consequences. While NATO was busy stockpiling weapons and preparing for a potential World War III, Europe faced a more immediate crisis: economic devastation. After years of brutal conflict, their industries were shattered, their infrastructure was in ruins, and their economies were on life support. Wars, as it turns out, are terrible for business. So, in 1951, 6 visionary European countries, France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, decided to try something radical. They decided to pool their coal and steel industries, the very resources that had fueled the war, into a single, shared market. Sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry, right? But this seemingly mundane agreement, the European coal and steel community, was actually the spark that ignited the creation of the European Union. Over time, this little coal and steel club evolved into a sprawling economic powerhouse. What started as a simple trade agreement blossomed into a complex network of treaties, institutions, and regulations. They created a common market, eliminated trade barriers, and eventually introduced a single currency, the euro. But here's the twist. While NATO was laser-focused on military defense, the EU was all about economic integration, fostering trade, and promoting cooperation. It was about building bridges, not walls. But, and this is a big but, trying to get 27 diverse countries with different languages, cultures, and priorities to agree on absolutely anything is like trying to herd cats while they're all arguing about which brand of catnip is superior. For decades, throughout the long, tense years of the Cold War, NATO and the EU operated like distant cousins at a sprawling, awkward family reunion. They were related through shared geography and history, The Berlin Wall, a stark symbol of this division, stood as a constant reminder of the world's precarious state. The US, as the dominant force in NATO, took the lead, providing both military and economic support, effectively becoming Europe's protector. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the world shifted on its axis. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, that concrete symbol of division, crumbled under the weight of popular protest. The Soviet Union, weakened by internal strife and economic stagnation, began to unravel. The Cold War, that decades-long standoff, was over. Now, here's where the geopolitical drama really heats up. After the Cold War's end, NATO faced a critical decision. What to do next? Did it still have a purpose? The answer, as it turned out, was a resounding yes, but with a twist. Instead of disbanding, NATO embarked on a period of significant expansion. Former Soviet satellite states in Eastern Europe, countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, eager to break free from Russia's influence and embrace Western democratic values, sought and gained NATO membership. This eastward expansion, while welcomed by many in Eastern Europe, fundamentally altered the strategic landscape. NATO's borders were now creeping closer and closer to Russia's, a development that Moscow viewed with increasing alarm. And Russia? Well, let's just say they weren't sending welcome to the neighborhood baskets or congrats on the expansion cards. They saw it as a broken promise, a betrayal of the understanding that NATO wouldn't expand eastward. They felt encircled, their security threatened. Fast forward to recent time, and NATO is once again front and center in global headlines, largely due to, well, Russia being Russia. Putin's Russia, increasingly assertive and determined to reclaim its lost influence, views NATO's expansion as a direct challenge. The current conflict in Ukraine, a nation that has expressed interest in NATO membership, highlights the deep-seated tensions between Russia and the West. It's a complex situation, with roots that run deep, and we're seeing the consequences unfold in real time. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is a story that's still unfolding, with implications that will shape the future of Europe for years to come. At this juncture, we have a complex, almost theatrical dynamic. The EU has evolved into a colossal economic powerhouse, a single market with immense trading power and a shared currency. NATO, meanwhile, remains the dominant military alliance, the guarantor of European security. For years, successive US presidents, regardless of political affiliation, have echoed the same message. Hey Europe, it's time to step up and pay your fair share for your own defense. They argue that the US can't continue to bear the lion's share of the financial burden indefinitely. However, Europe, being Europe, tends to approach these matters with a more deliberate pace. This has led to growing frustration within the US, with some questioning the long-term viability of the alliance. In fact, within Europe, some countries have even started to entertain the notion of creating a separate, independent EU military force, a move that would significantly alter the transatlantic relationship and challenge NATO's dominance. So, what's next? Will NATO and the EU unite even stronger? Will Europe finally pay up for its defense? Will US leave the NATO? Or will Russia force everyone to drop the drama and get serious? One thing's for sure, this story isn't over. It's just getting interesting. What do you think? Will they stick together or fall apart? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you want more and subscribe to keep up. The future's coming. Are you ready?